Hello everyone, I'm Dave Walls with ICC, Executive Director of Sustainability Programs, and I want to welcome you all to the panel presentation on the 2018 IgCC powered by 189.1 and what the International Green Construction Code means for the design and construction of new buildings. For several years now, we've had two green codes available for the construction of green buildings. The International Green Construction Code and the ASHRAE 189.1, and both were published in 2010. Early on, ICC and ASHRAE decided that the codes should work together, and discussions ensued as to what it should look like. The initial agreement was a section in the IGCC allowing ASHRAE 189.1 to be used as an alternate compliance path, and the choice was up to the designer. The 2018 version of the IGCC is taking the next step in that effort to bring these two codes together, and our panelists are going to talk about that today. Our goal today is to cover the history of the 2018 IGCC, impacts on sustainability or sustainable design, construction, and adoptions, future alignment of LEED and the IGCC, support resources for adoption and implementation, development and publication timelines of the code. We have a panel of distinguished guests today. On my right is Mick Schwedler. In the center is Maureen Guttman, and on the far end is Wes Sullins. I'd like to start the first presentation with Mick Schwedler. Mick is ASHRAE's Vice President. Oh yeah, I should have been clicking those. Is the Vice President for the 2017-2018 term. And he also serves as the Coordinating Officer for the Planning Committee and serves on several other ASHRAE committees. In addition to his contributions to ASHRAE, Mick is an applications engineer, engineering manager at Trane in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and has been active in the development, training, and support in energy-efficient systems since 1982. Mick, would you like to start us off?
Thanks very much, Dave.
First, we're going to start off looking at the historical perspective of IGC and 189.1. How did we get here and where are we going? With IGC powered by 189.1, ASHRAE standard 189.1 is a standard, while the IGCC is a code. And all those two work together. They need to find a way to work together, and that's what we're talking about today. 189.1 actually began in 2006. The committee was formed and published its first version in 2010. Then finally in 2014, a group was put together to more formalize how these two documents could work together moving forward. With respect to that, a partnership was formed, but it wasn't just a partnership with the ICC and ASHRAE. It also included the American Institute of Architects, the Illuminating Engineering Society, and the U.S. Green Building Council. And these five partners got together and formed an agreement, a memorandum of understanding. Within that partnership, it was determined that 189.1 would put together the technical portions that would become part of a green code, and then the International Code Council would make the IGCC to put the framework around those codes. And actually from that agreement, what IGCC's portion and ICC's portion was, they'd put the administrative and enforcement structure, and then to assure adoptable and enforceable codes. And one of the reasons is 189 has, the 189.1 committee has architects, engineers, etc. And sometimes as an engineer, I can say, serving on committees like that, we aren't always the best at writing adoptable code language. And ICC is excellent at doing that, so this partnership moving forward makes a lot of sense. From a partnership and goals standpoint, we want to move together with a new era of building codes so that we have one code moving forward, not two separate documents, as Dave mentioned earlier. So from an integration standpoint, the goal is to 189.1 is going to be published later this fall in 2017. It will then be put into that enforceable language and adoptable language by the International Code Council folks. So this is a timeline. There aren't exact dates on here because nobody knows exactly when things are going to happen. But late in the fall of 2017, 189.1 will be finished and be published. At that point, ICC and ASHRAE will work together to put the final documents together. It's not sure exactly how long that's going to take. We're going to have to make sure that the technical requirements are done, that the enforceable language wraps around those technical requirements so that the intent is met in all cases. In either spring or summer of 2018, it's expected that the document will be published, and moving forward, ASHRAE in its winter meetings in January of 2019 will have huge amounts of publication information available for folks. This is a quotation from the August 2014 press release. And it's very appropriate that it talks about what we really want to do is improve building performance, streamline regulation and reduce costs. And that is from the CEO of ICC, Dom Sims. Maureen, you're next.
Thank you.
Next up, I'd like to go to Maureen Guttman, and Maureen is a licensed architect with over 25 years of experience in energy efficiency and green building design. As BCAP's president, Maureen oversees efforts of a nationwide campaign to support the adoption and enforcement of today's model energy codes. In addition, she directs several technical, educational, advocacy projects to help various stakeholder groups realize the benefits of energy codes and efficient buildings. Maureen?
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay. So, not to reiterate the good history lesson that Mick just offered, but to kind of fill in the blanks from the side of ICC. The IgCC was developed on the timeline we talked about with the same thought in mind that we need something to regulate high-performance buildings in an enforceable manner. We had been working with a lot of green rating systems that were really terrific and were really moving the market, but we didn't have something that we felt was enforceable. So ICC decided that we needed to put something into code language at the same time that ASHRAE was undergoing a similar initiative. So our charging language for ourselves in writing that document at the very beginning was to make sure that we're doing something promoting sustainability, which we did never define, and green construction, which we did never define, but we were defining them by virtue of the provisions that we wrote into this code, and that we wanted it to not only be enforceable, because that's clearly a make or break deal for a building code, but we wanted it to be adoptable, which means not so far advanced that people would reject it for being crazy, and usable, meaning we wanted design professionals and builders and code officials all to be able to really grasp what the concepts were and understand it so that they could move forward with it. It also brought into it the aspect of flexibility and customization that the IgCC has had for the first couple versions, and that it will ultimately, I think, have again. So it was always designed to be part of the family of I codes, to be used with the other I codes, to be coordinated with, to be an overlay, in fact, to the other I codes. We were not repeating provisions from the plumbing code or the energy code or the fire code. We were laying things on top of those existing base code provisions. And as with the 189 intent, we're trying to create something that would impact, the reduce negative impact and hopefully improve the positive impact of the built environment. So again, we want to be really clear when we wrote this that we were writing a building code. We were not writing another green building standard. We did not want to be in competition with those organizations. In fact, USGBC was a partner in developing the IgCC right from the beginning, and that worked really well, as AIA had also been involved, as ASHRAE had also been involved. And we just wanted to make very clear that it was not another green rating system that would have these enforceability issues. We were shooting to write a building code. So that's how we got to a point where we had two different standards that were in the marketplace and creating, a little bit of confusion. So it really worked out to be a perfect reason to get these two things together with all the brain power that was behind both efforts. This is an illustration of where adoptions of the IgCC had occurred as of maybe earlier this year on a state basis or on a local basis. And contrary to people saying, oh, it hasn't been adopted, we should just, give up on this idea, the fact is it has been adopted. And it has been really, there's a lot of interest in this code. And I think that there's going to be continued and increasing uptake, particularly now that we've streamlined the process and gotten all of the good technical content melded together into one resource. So I'm looking forward to the updating this map with a lot more green on it as we move forward with adoptions going forward. One of the things that AIA has been involved with is working with members in some of the cities that have adopted the Green Code to talk about how this has been a boon for design professionals because it gives an opportunity to develop a new area of expertise, to provide a different line of professional services, frankly, to be a community resource in ways that you've not been before. So for AIA and ASHRAE both, I think that the idea of getting involved and becoming experts on sustainability and green building, high performance building is a really huge opportunity for those members to be participants in the code development, code adoption, code enforcement process. So we've done several presentations talking very specifically about the really great examples of adoption that have occurred in Dallas, Scottsdale, Arizona, and Washington, D.C., where there are already several hundred buildings that have been permitted under the Green Building Code in D.C. And the great thing about the new IGCC/189 that's going to be published early in 2018 is that it will still work as an overlay to either the IECC or ASHRAE 90.1. That was a really huge concern for the ICC and for AIA at first, and we had great work putting together an appendix that will allow users and adopters of the IGCC to either work with 90.1 as their base energy code or with the IECC as the base energy code. So from an adoptability standpoint, we feel that this is going to be seamless and really exciting and great for all jurisdictions. And frankly, we're really most excited about this, and I say we from the standpoint of energy efficiency advocates, sustainability advocates, the architects, because building codes are moving to be performance-based. Building codes are really going to be focusing on sustainability as a primary focus, in addition to health and safety. But the idea is, we are always talking health, safety, and welfare, and these aspects of sustainability and green are really where the welfare comes in, and it's not just the welfare of the building owner and the building occupants, but the welfare of the community. So we're pretty excited about the direction that we're going with this new product. I think that's the only slide I had. Yep.
Okay. Oh. All right. Thank you, Maureen. Next up is Wes Sullins. Wes is the Director for Building Codes Technical Development at the U.S. Green Building Council. His current role is aligning the technical requirements from the USGBC's LEED rating system to green building codes. Prior to joining USGBC, Wes worked for 10 years in local government in California and participated in the development of California's Green Building Standards Code, also known as CalGreen.
Thank
Wes?
you. Great. Well, thanks for inviting us all here, Dave. And I'd like to give a quick just background on USGBC and who we are, and then launch into what I think is a really exciting initiative that we're undertaking here and really ready to take it to the next era of green codes. So the USGBC, we're well known for the rating system, the LEED rating system that we administer to certify high-performance green buildings. We started out as a nonprofit in the U.S. We're international. We're still headquartered here, but we're in 165 countries, have been using our LEED rating system. We also do more than just buildings. We do certifications of zero waste at facilities. We do work on site sustainable landscapes, even an investment real estate portfolio kind of certification standard. So we do many things, but LEED is definitely our flagship rating system. And LEED has been pretty successful. We're at over 5 billion square feet of certified buildings now. More than 2 million square feet certify each day to the rating system. And so these numbers are indicative that LEED is no longer a fad or something that's, just a small portion of the market. It really is a major force in the industry for green construction. But is it enough? That's kind of the question that we've been asking ourselves, and I think we all need to ask. When we look at the impacts that buildings have on the environment, and here's just some kind of summary stats that are often used to represent the amount of impact the built environment has. These are big numbers, and the building industry can do a lot to both impact but also change and help and have opportunities to save. But we need more than just those LEED buildings. We need as many buildings as possible, and that really is the mission of USGBC, is green for all, green buildings for all. And to this effect, we actually did a study in 2015 looking at what are some of the positive effects that you can have by greening buildings. And this chart shows some of the savings, the dollar savings that can be had for energy and operations and waste, et cetera, that happen by building green. So it's no longer just the idea of doing less bad, but you can actually be good at this and make money and be responsible. And this study we did also showed the economic impacts locally from building green and the job creations that has and the good green jobs. So it's hopefully a resource we can use to kind of promote these ideas. So why us and why now? These partners, I think this partnership that we've started, as was just represented very, very nicely, we've been working at this for a while. We've got a standard out there, and we're soon to have this integrated model code. And I think what this does and why it's exciting is we have really the best code development body. We've got the best standards technical development body. We've got the top-tier rating system for green rating systems, and then some of the most impressive professional organizations that can affect buildings, all together behind this one idea of a good green code that can become the base for things like LEED, but that is adopted widely and broadly. And that's something that we want to see and want to foster. All of us do, and especially the USGBC, because it is part of our mission. And we think that this is the time, this is the place, this is the standard to do it. So to that effect, we're interested in using whatever leverage the USGBC can to help make this a reality. We're in the developing stages right now of figuring out, with this 2018 IgCC, are there measures within LEED that can be essentially streamlined or lined up with the code so that they become maybe not the set of all prerequisites, but there's a base common set of requirements that are an on-ramp to things like LEED. And we hope this is a two-way street, so it encourages projects to pursue LEED that maybe wouldn't because they're already building the base, but it also helps our rating system get better over time and connect better to local conditions, local model codes, things that this industry is picking up. And we have a attempt of this happening right now. We just launched a streamlining of LEED documentation in California. So California is somewhat unique. It's a state that has long been a leader in energy codes for over 35 years or more, and in 2011 adopted as a mandatory requirement the green building codes, or made them mandatory. And those green codes have a good set of basic things, and beyond basic even, of recycling and water conservation, indoor air quality, a bunch of the foundations of what LEED has been built on. And those are now required essentially by every project in the state that goes through permitting. And that's, we think, a great place to showcase and try this sort of synergy between a green code and a rating system. And so this is probably hard to read for you in the audience here, but just want to give a sense. Earlier this year, we announced that if you're building to code in California, a new construction, non-res, and we're even pushing this probably to commercial interiors in the short term, but all of the prerequisites of LEED, and there's 12 prerequisites right now in the version 4 rating system, all of those plus up to 6 points are essentially met just by meeting code. And we're hoping to rely on the documentation that comes from that and the oversight and the review from the code officials from that process to be our essentially a third party for those types, those verification pieces of LEED. We still have the ability to look at that, and to, if a project wants to get certified, they have to go farther, they got to do more, but at least this base part is made simpler just by building in the state. And these circles are meant to show that there's a bunch of, there's the prerequisites that are met, the credits, and then these dotted lines are the certification levels for LEED. And we think that by doing, just building on top of what you're already doing to the building code, saving a little bit more energy, a little bit more water, doing some more materials for recycling or low emitting, et cetera, and also taking into account your location and access to transit and things, then LEED is within reach for almost every project now. And we'd like to encourage and see more projects push the boundaries of code and go to that leadership level, again, so we can take that information back and helpfully encourage and update the codes as they go based on the strategies we've seen. So that's a relationship we're testing. There's more to come on that, and we hope to do a similar type of effort with the IGCC. We'll be announcing more of that at Greenbuild this year and on and into next year when this takes off. And wanted to end with a quote from our CEO and president who says, and he's known to say this a lot, that partnership is the new leadership. I've been asked, why does the USGBC care so much about green codes all of a sudden? Well, it's not all of a sudden, first. And second of all, we do really view this as part of that mission critical. How do we get green buildings for all? How do we ensure that all of the cities, the communities, the people that live and work in those get the benefits of green building? Lower operating costs, better environments, better interior environments. That's something we believe should be fundamental to everyone. And the green code is a big way to do that. So we're happy to put whatever energy and enthusiasm and incentives we can to help spur that and bring it along. Thank you.
Thank you, Wes. I'd like to do a quick summary. So Mick covered how the organizations came together with the goal in mind to have a single model code in green buildings. He mentioned that there were 5 organizations that partnered together in this effort. And they all have a collective vision of a new era of building design and construction that includes environmental health and safety code minimums. Maureen touched on the IGCC is intended to reduce the negative impacts of the built environment on the natural environment, and the IGCC is an adoptable, usable, and enforceable model code. The IGCC will still work as an overlay to the ICC and to ASHRAE 90.1. Wes talked about the significant savings from green construction and the number of jobs added to local economies when they build green. The IGCC helps fulfill the mission of all of our code organizations, and USGBC is working to enable a direct connection between the IGCC and LEED, similar to what they've done in California. And so ultimately, to help realize the vision, the organizations are making a concerted effort to actively promote the 2018 IGCC with the hopes of gaining wide-scale adoption. The details of this are still being formed, but it includes, among other things, the development of resources such as education and training, personnel certification, guides, manuals, and commentaries, forms and lists, and an adoption toolkit. Bottom line, stay tuned. There is more to come in the months ahead as we get closer to the publication of the 2018 IGCC. With that, we have time for one question for each panelist, if there are any from the audience. None? I know one I would like to ask is, we've talked about kind of what we've done and where we're at as far as the committee going forward. And I think any one of you could answer this: is what's the 189.1 committee? When do they start up again? Looking at the next version, where are we going with that?
Perhaps I can fill that one. 189.1 is on continuous maintenance. They always work. And basically they're in the throes of already developing new proposals for the next version of 189.1, which will come out in another 3 years. So they will develop addenda. Those addenda will go through public review. If there are comments, they'll respond to the comments. If there are unresolved objectors, they will try to resolve those objectors. And then 3 years from now, we'll be at a similar stage. We'll be moving forward with 189.1 2020, and I suspect IGCC 2021.
Thank you, Mick. Maureen?
Yeah, I'll add to that because that work is ongoing, even though we are just finishing up the first version of the joint document. ICC organizational committees are working to bring to bear that enforceable code language aspect to think about how we can provide guidance to the 189.1 committee on furthering the flexibility and adoptability of the code as it is currently going to be published for 2018. So we're really excited working with a bunch of ICC committees to put together proposals that bring back into it some things that allow jurisdictional flexibility or project flexibility or advanced levels of sustainability. So we'll have the code moving forward in that direction with future versions.
Wes, I know you were the vice chair this past round of
Yep.
189.1. Thoughts?
Maybe I would just add on going forward, one thing we hope to bring to this as well, I didn't mention in the slides, is data from lead projects and informing the code updates with that. So to those efforts of when a code proposal comes in that has maybe some overlap with a lead measure, we can give some information about how has that been achieved and maybe some even expert reviews from those that have reviewed the projects. And so we're hoping, again, this two-way street of how lead certification can inform better codes and vice versa. We're hoping to start that in this round.
Great. Want to thank you all again. Oh, I'm sorry, Mick? Oh, you have a question. Okay.
For those jurisdictions that have currently adopted the IgCC, and for those that were looking to adopt it in the future, how would you, for those that would have concerns about adopting the 2018, how would you present to them so that their concerns would, there wouldn't be a concern in adopting the new 2018 version of the IgCC?
Well, I guess the first question to answer your question is finding out what their concerns would be. I know that the earliest version of the IgCC had some hastily written provisions, particularly in the energy chapter, and I was involved in that, so I will help take responsibility. But that I know those things have been corrected, greatly improved in the past couple versions, and really, really tightened up in what's going to become the 2018 version. I think that it would be interesting to find out other concerns that might exist, because if there are things we haven't addressed through this new development process, we want to make sure we cover them going forward. But the thing about local adoption that is really quite wonderful in the model code world is they can fix errors and oversights in the local adoption process. So if there's something in the model code that doesn't work in a particular jurisdiction, then we certainly would be able and willing to help a jurisdiction craft their language for their adopting ordinance so that it does what they want it to do.
Wes or Mick, any thoughts?
I think that your question's spot on, and we're early in figuring out how to answer that. Maybe from the lead side, one thing we could look at, and you know, as a group, is see what does the model code look like? What does the adopted local code look like today in that jurisdiction? And are there any perhaps gaps, like say filling in the water or the IEQ or something like that that may have not been adopted in the earlier version? Maybe there's ways to use this version of the standard to fill in some of those, and I guess, and again, create those connections with lead and a base kind of code that's consistent in many places. Yeah, Mick?
Finally, if there are issues with the 189.1 standard that are getting in the way of adoption, anybody can make a proposal to the 189.1 committee at any time, and the committee must respond. So perhaps there's a way for ASHRAE, USGBC, and ICC to work together so that all the people working within the codes and within the jurisdictions, all the building officials know about this avenue and can help make things better moving forward.
Excellent, a good question, and I'll just add that yes, ICC is keenly aware of that concern, and so it is going to be part of our plan with all of our organizations, as mentioned, moving forward to how we address that. So I just want to thank all of the panelists. Fantastic presentations, did a great job, really enjoyed it. And I want to thank all of you for being here today. And with that, I'd like to close the session. Thank you.